We will hear from Jonathan Lawless, who is Vice President and for Product Development and Affordable Housing at Fannie Mae in Washington, D.C. Fannie Mae has been at the forefront of driving innovation in the affordable housing industry. Is it working?
I think so. Can you guys hear me? It's good. I chose to talk about something a little different today on energy efficiency, and I wanted to provide a couple of caveats before I get going. First caveat is I've never presented this collection of ideas to anybody, and I've very rarely presented it even internally. So what that means is it might be a little bit crazy, and I don't think it's necessarily an incredibly new idea, but this collection of ideas I haven't really shared with anybody before, so it's probably not terribly perfectly thought through, but I thought that'd be a little bit more exciting for this type of forum because all of you out there are innovators, and I think a lot of you can support and help us think through how to make something like what I'm going to talk about actually work. The second caveat is, despite having worked a little bit in energy efficiency, I'm not an expert at it. So I will say that I always judge my ability to know an industry by the percentage of acronyms I know. And I know about 1/3 of the acronyms in energy efficiency, which means I'm pretty good. But there's 2/3 of the acronyms that just sort of lose me. And so I'm not perfectly knowledgeable in that space. So that being said, I think I've started my talk by saying I don't have a perfectly thought through idea and I don't know what I'm talking about. So I hope to spend the next 17 minutes convincing you of otherwise. Okay, so my role at Fannie Mae is, as introduced, I work in affordable housing, and so I often get the question of, you're traveling to go see Tesla solar panels, and you're working with Google hardware division. How does that have anything to do with affordable housing? And of course, it has a lot to do with affordable housing because of one of what I consider the hidden costs of home ownership, which is utilities. And so utilities are incredibly important, and is this just me, or is it? Okay. So, I lived in a condo, I sold that, I bought a new house. When I was moving into my new house, one of the things I didn't know was how much my energy bills were going to be. I literally had no idea. In fact, when I went online for this presentation, I always like to give local data, and I went to say, if I were going to buy a 2,500 square foot home in Richmond, Virginia, how much would I be paying on a monthly basis for my utilities? Just give me a range, what is it going to look like in December, what's it going to look like? I really couldn't find it. It was actually really challenging for me to find. And so I think that's kind of remarkable when you consider the fact that this is an average across the country. Now, nobody lives in this state or place. This is an average, but you still look at water, gas, and electric, that's $250 a month. Now, just putting that in terms of a mortgage payment, if you're buying if you have a $200,000 mortgage, $250 more would be a $250,000 mortgage, right? It's a difference in $50,000 in home price is equivalent to this cost that we move into homes we don't even know it's there, right? So where this gets really sad is how challenging for a lot of lower income people paying for these bills is. So one interesting fact is that on average, consumers buy homes that are roughly 30 years old. Lower income people buy homes that are on average 50 years old. So the people that have the least amount of money are buying the homes that have the most amount of repair bills and probably and most likely the most amount of energy expenses, right? So that's why we hear things like 1/3 of Americans struggle paying their utility bills, right? That's a crazy number. And you hear things about energy poverty, which is a really depressing thing, where people are making trade-offs between being warm in the wintertime and being able to afford clothing or things for school or food or transportation cost, right? So this is a real challenge. The average amount of low income that goes to energy costs is 10%. It's more than 10% in a lot of states, right? That's crazy. And one thing I just learned today while I was reading up on this topic is that utility costs are the number 2 cause of homelessness in this country, right? So it's really fascinating that this thing that's such a major part of home ownership is such a challenge and a struggle for so many people in this country. And I just find it amazing. I mean, Teresa mentioned that there's 8 billion. We've got 8 billion pocket computers in this country. We have drones delivering packages. And we also have people that are still not able to heat and cool their homes on a regular basis. That to me is crazy. And that's something we absolutely have to fix. And I know a lot of people are focused on this problem. The question is, how are we going to really improve this problem? Now, for those of you that energy bills aren't a challenge for, there's another sort of hidden cost of energy, which is that it's destroying our planet, right? So this chart here on the left, which you don't really need to know except for the fact that it's like going up, is sort of the total energy consumption by the residential sector in terms of the sort of, I think it's carbon dioxide emissions, right? So anyway, you get the point. Ultimately, the cost of heating and cooling our homes is a major contributor to emissions and a major reason why we're seeing things like climate change. So if you are not necessarily concerned about poor people, you should be. You probably should be concerned about the planet because that's going to make us all suffer eventually as well. One last fact on this, and I know we've got a lot of people from the energy industry here, and something that a lot of folks in the energy space have been doing is, because it's like DC, for example, we have 3 power plants. They're all in Maryland. We import our energy. The population in DC in the last 5 years has grown 13%, but our energy consumption has actually gone down by 3%. And it's because a lot of utility companies are realizing that investing in efficiency is a much better way to improve energy usage than trying to build a $400 million power plant, which is going to break most cities' budgets. So we're seeing improvement in the space, but nonetheless, population growth and inconsistency across where that's applied means that energy usage is slowly but surely killing our planet at a faster rate. So that's all depressing. But that's the intro to make you guys excited about what the great solution's going to be here. So a couple of things that I think are really fascinating and that are changing at a very rapid pace is that making homes energy efficient has not only gotten cheaper to do, it's also gotten a hell of a lot cooler, right? Because you talk about insulation and low-flow toilets, it's pretty boring. But you talk about something like what you see on the screen here, and it gets pretty exciting. So, of course, you see in the foreground here a Tesla automobile, which I did not put this picture up here to show you. But instead, what's in the background is a Tesla solar panel that's made of roofing shingles. So for those of you who have not read about this, they're doing an amazing job producing shingles that look exactly like a roof. They're opening a major factory in Buffalo. This factory is going to be able to get the cost of this down to the point where it's barely more expensive than your standard roof. What's really neat about that, first of all, they're beautiful. As you can see, I've driven through neighborhoods where these exist, and I was hard-pressed to find the home. But the energy from that goes into a battery in your wall. It could power your energy-driven car if you have one. But another idea that they've talked about in their company is, why not take that energy and put it in the front yard? So that another Tesla driver, another electric car driver might be driving through your neighborhood and say, oh, I need some energy. There's a little energy station in front of somebody's house. They go to your house during the day while you're not there. They buy energy from you. So not only are you not using energy, you're making money off your home's energy, right? That's really awesome, right? And that stuff is coming. That's a major example of it. But a really small example is the other one I have in the bottom right here, which is a smart thermostat. The little Nest devices. You guys have all seen that. What's amazing about those little devices is that it's estimated that people save 10 to 15% on their utility costs just by installing those things, right? I mean, it's a $250 thing, and people are saving a meaningful amount of money. By the way, never pay $250 for it because you can get rebates almost anywhere to get that down to under $100. But in any case, that's a huge amount of savings. And the other really neat thing about putting a Nest thermostat in your home is that a lot of realtors have estimated that if you put a Nest thermostat in your home, it'll sell for $5,000 more. Isn't that weird? That's $200, $5. And the reason is people walk in the home, like Melania walks in and goes, oh, this is a smart home. This is really cool, right? It's a cool piece of technology. People love it. They're willing to pay extra money for it. Not only are you going to get extra money for it, you're going to save on energy, right? So the cost of saving has gone down, and it's a really, really exciting time for that. There's a great article in the Wall Street Journal, if you get a chance to look at it, Amazon and Google's activity in the utility space. This is just a quote from a friend of mine at Google, Jeff Hamill, who runs a big portion of their hardware division. But the thought here is if we can collectively start making small changes to the energy efficiencies of homes, over time we can gradually make major savings that benefit power providers, that benefit the grid, the environment, and the consumer, right? So start thinking about energy efficiency as something that we do incrementally over time, and we can have a major impact. Amazon and Google, they're doing some incredible thinking on this, and so if you think about what technology can do, and very simple, cheap technology that will do things like preheat your home so you're not using energy when it's at peak capacity, right? It's a huge saver, right? A much better way to use energy. Those things are simple and easy to install and have really, really powerful benefits. So those are exciting changes. And so what I really want to talk about, though, is when do we make those changes, right? Because I'll tell you, and the example I always use is I probably pay too much on my cable bill. I'm positive I do, right? Because every year you're supposed to call them and say, well, I'm really thinking about changing my company, and then they say, oh, we'll give you this discount again, right? And I'm just too lazy to do it, right? And so, getting people to do the right thing is actually, it's a hard thing to do. You got to have the time, you have to have the energy to sit down and actually think about it. And so what we need to think about how to do this is how to nudge them to make the right decision at the right point in time. And so what I want to share is this idea that refinancing or buying a home is the exact right time to start nudging people to make their homes more energy efficient. So here's some of the reasons why. First of all, when you're buying a home or refinancing a home, you're actually thinking about how much you're going to pay every month, right? It would be really nice to know how much you're going to pay on energy bills and what you can do to reduce your energy bills. So you're in the mindset of your new home or your existing home, and you're thinking about payments, so your mind's in the right place. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, I mean, it's an incredible way to finance things. You'd be hard-pressed to find any cheaper source of financing in the entire world for personal consumers. The next point here is we at Fannie Mae, we insure a lot of loans. In fact, on our portfolio, it's about 1 in 4 single-family homes right now that are in our $3 trillion guarantee portfolio. And one of the things we really care about is whether or not people can make their mortgage payment. And saving them on energy, and certainly taking away that volatility on energy, is a great way to ensure that they can sustain their homes. So we're involved in the transaction, and lower payments for the consumer makes us very happy. And then the last point here, and this is sort of a new and growing one, is that there's a lot of data that's collected. So we just talked about the e-mortgage, right? It's incredible the amount of information you can get on consumers right now throughout the mortgage process. We know the home, we know their banking history, we know a lot of things that are really, really important to make really smart decisions about energy efficiency. So every purchase or refinance of a home should be an opportunity to make it more energy efficient. So how are we going to pay for it? Let me walk through a couple things. Fannie Mae has a product, so of course I have to do this plug, HomeStyle Energy. It has been a terrible product. In fact, I often hear from people in my company is, we need to do a better job of training people on the product. And as a product developer, like as soon as somebody says you need to train somebody on a product, in my mind it has no shot. And so it's a complicated product today, but we've made a lot of enhancements and we're continuing to make changes to the process. But bottom line, here's the deal. If you finance in with a refinance, so let's say you're taking money out of your home, taking equity out, and you finance into that balance an energy upgrade, not only will we not charge you for taking equity out of your home, which typically you have to pay a lot on, but we'll also give you $500. Actually, we give it to the lender can pass it on or not. They keep it. Generally, they pass it on, right? So that's a good deal. If you're buying a home, same thing. If you finance in energy upgrades to your purchase of the home, we will provide you with $500. So there's some money already in the transaction. Now, the reason I say it's really complicated is because the data's not there yet for us to be able to know exactly if the enhancement's the right enhancement, if they could be buying some really fancy thing for the home. How do we really make sure that they're not doing that? So there are process challenges, but we're working on solving those right now. Next source of money. State utilities offer a ton of discounted things. So I mentioned what DC is doing to try to make homeowners save money on energy efficiency. They want to do it more specifically for low-income consumers. I think this data is from 2016. $3.6 billion of spending for consumers to do energy upgrades, $24 a person on average. I picked a couple logos and stuff from DC that I found online, but this is true everywhere that you go. There are a lot of things that you can take advantage of as a consumer to save on money. But go back to the cable story. I'm not online every day thinking about what rebates I can get and what days of the year I can use this 3-day tax holiday, so I'm not really using those things. But the idea that I want to share with you guys is if all of that data were available publicly, which it is, and we're able to connect it to our tool where we're underwriting mortgages, Desktop Underwriter, what we can do is every time you apply for a loan, we can provide you at that time and at that moment not only the ability to get $500, but get a whole bunch of other money from your local utility company. And for utilities, they love this idea because one challenge they have is they don't know who a low-income consumer is where they really want to spend more money. Well, guess what? We know exactly who the low-income consumer is in the process, and so connecting that data can provide a whole new series of benefits flowing through the process. Oops. Okay. Fannie Mae's multifamily business is the largest issuer of green bonds in the world. What a green bond basically is a bond that finances some type of green activity. In our case, in the multifamily side, what that means is for builders that will improve the efficiency of their building, we will give them discounted rates on financing. We securitize that in a green bond. That doesn't exist in the single-family space yet, but we're thinking a lot about what that might look like. And so the idea would be that if you in your mortgage have financed a major upgrade to your home that's really reduced emissions in the world, we take those loans, we pool them together, and we say, this is a green MBS. And what's really powerful about that is investors out there who have a desire to spend their money on making the world better in reducing emissions might be willing to spend a little bit more money on those types of bonds if those bonds continue to get generated and become more popular and we see more adoption of this. A little bit more money on a security means actually a few $100s on the transaction. So started off with the $500 from us, we've got a bunch of energy rebates, and now we have anywhere from $200 to $1,000 that might flow through the process as a result of investors getting more involved in this concept of a green MBS. Lastly, I mentioned the very, very cheap rates at which you can finance things, and so I mentioned that you could put things in the mortgage. I've given a bunch of, you probably can't see this in the back of the room. If you can, you've got amazing vision. But basically, this is like, how much more is your mortgage if you finance $500? Turns out to be $3 a month, okay? $500, you can buy 2 thermostats for the top and bottom floor. $3 a month, you're going to save 10 to 15% of your utilities. It's a no-brainer, right? But the line I pointed out here is something like $5,000. Again, just sort of making it up. But $5,000 financed into your mortgage is going to be $27 more a month. Now, add 500 with the 500 from us, maybe 1,000 from investors and energy rebates. You actually have about almost $8,000 to $10,000 of buying power of energy efficiency upgrades. You're paying $27 more a month. You're paying $187 to start with on average in the country. Do you think that $7,000 or $8,000 of money spent on energy efficiencies can save you $27 on that energy bill? Absolutely it can, right? Again, no brainer, your monthly costs. If you're a buyer and you're thinking about monthly payments, you should be, every time you buy or refinance your home, you should be looking at this calculation and figuring out how to do it. So that's where I sort of really see this exciting opportunity, right? You think about our money, the energy rebates, investor payouts, the opportunity to finance at really low rates, resulting in very low monthly payments. That's a huge opportunity for us to chip away at this problem of residential energy consumption. And so, and we're doing a lot of this already. I mentioned that we've been thinking about this for a while. A lot of it's not a new idea. We're experimenting with our HomeStyle Energy process. Are there bundles that you can finance at the beginning? It's got to be for the consumers do not want to work at this. They want to press a button, the realtor, the loan officer, everybody in the process. They don't want to have to go find a subcontractor to go install this and that. We've got to make it a really, really easy process and really easy to show the consumer that press this button and your monthly costs are going to go down by $100, right? It's got to be that simple and easy, and we're experimenting with that process. We're trying to bring in that utility data. We're expanding HomeStyle Energy. Some cities, actually, when you sell a home, you're required to do an energy audit. You're required to give the buyer a list of all the things that you should do to your house to save money. That makes this whole process a lot easier. Portland is a great example of where that happens. Ultimately, a lot of people want to start with this last part, and this is something that we as an industry really have to work on, which is what I said at the beginning. You buy a home, you have no idea how much it costs to pay for your energy bills. It's not out there. When you buy a home, you don't know that somebody's put a bunch of energy upgrades in the home, so you're not going to pay more money for that home. So how do we get that data into MLSs? How do we just get it into the conversation so that just like when you buy a car, every time you get a special sealant or you get tire insurance or these things that get offered, every time you finance a home, you should be thinking about all these aspects, because at the end of the day, you're going to save a ton of money, and those people that are low income are going to be able to make their monthly payments a lot better. And of course, as a side benefit, we actually get to save the planet. So that's pretty cool too. So I will end with that. Thank you guys very much.